This show is brought to you by the Garden Gurus and Evergreen Garden Care. Evergreen Garden Care and their market-leading brands are some of the most trusted consumer brands within the garden care market. They produce high-quality garden care products designed to help people create their own green oasis. Whether it's a garden, a balcony, or potted indoor plants, they want to inspire anyone, anywhere to be able to easily create and maintain their own garden. To find out more about Evergreen Garden Care, head to www.lovethegarden.com. Garden Express are Australia's leading mail-order gardening service, offering a wide range of quality garden products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show you jump online and visit their website.
Hello and welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. I'm Trevor Cochrane. It's great to have you joining us today, and it's great to be back on a Monday morning. I don't know about you, but I have had a really wet July. In fact, it has been so wet. We had nearly, where I live, which is not far out of Perth metro area, just under half a metre of rain. So I was walking around my garden yesterday, squishing and squashing, thinking to myself, gee whiz, I don't ever recall it being this wet. And around the country at the moment, there is a fair bit going on when it comes to rainfall. We'll talk about that in a second. Today on the show, we've got my mate Nigel Ruck joining us. He's coming into us from Sydney, and of course everybody over there at the moment in Sydney and also in Brisbane, where you've also gone into lockdown. Hearts are going out to you guys. Hopefully things start to turn around really soon there, but I suppose it's a bit more time at home, maybe a bit more time in the garden, so it's not so bad. We're not far away from filming the Garden Gurus series. In fact, we've just started, and Nigel tell us a little bit about his first stories. Have you got roses in your garden? You should have pruned them by now, because it's usually the first week of August when you really get into them, and getting them into shape is a really big deal. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. I've got a couple of products that you should be putting into the garden at the moment that'll help them really get a kickstart as they start to grow out from that pruning process. Garden Express, my mate David Van Berkel will join us a little bit later on. We've got 4 packets of Mr. Fothergill seeds and a Dalek tap for a lucky winner. We'll show you we'll tell you how to do that, and that's quite easy. All you have to do is make sure that you're asking us lots of questions. I'll just quickly talk about the rain before we go to some of your questions. They are flowing through, so send them in. And remember, when you do, just tell us where you're from. So state and also suburb. It really does help me a lot, because everywhere in the country at the moment we're getting very different conditions. Now, Perth, I said, had well and truly above average rainfall, nearly 100 mils in the metro area, and certainly up where I live, nearly 200 mils. It was a massive July. The second wettest on record. Today, it's only 17 degrees and cloudy. Looks like we're going to get some more rain. In Sydney, it's 21 degrees. You've got a morning shower there, and the rainfall, well, again, in Sydney, like it has been in Perth, above average. In Brisbane, interestingly enough, rainfall has been below average. It's 28 degrees in Brisbane at the moment, so things will be a bit dry in your garden. So this is why it's important you tell us what it is that you would like me to answer, and let me know exactly where you're located, because it's such a big difference. For example, in Adelaide, it's only 13 degrees at the moment. It's like Melbourne, but rainfall has been below average in Adelaide. Hobart has got a shower or two, and Darwin, it's only 13 degrees in Hobart, and Darwin's 33 degrees and sunny. And this is what we're dealing with when we're talking with the Garden Gurus Live. We're trying to help you with your garden problems, but we're dealing with such a big country, 5 different climatic zones, so many different environments that we're all gardening in. So we're getting very different sort of problems occurring. So maybe I should help you with those first. Margaret is in Belgrave. Hello, Margaret. It's great to have you with us. Belgrave is just out of Melbourne. A suburb of, actually. I was given a beautiful Cymbidium orchid early May. It's now finished flowering. Should you cut it back to the bulb or to the pseudo bulbs? They look like bulbs. And how do I look after this beautiful plant? Now, the trick with Cymbidiums actually is if it's a quite a big clumpy sort of plant, you can actually break them up as soon as they finish flowering. So you cut the flower stem off completely. You can repot it. Now's a good time to be doing it and giving it a feed, but use a controlled release plant food. Keep them in a relatively sort of protected environment, and then really probably about sort of January, more likely sort of end of February, you want to move it out into a brightly lit position, and this will trigger flowering for next year, for next season. So that's often a problem with Cymbidiums, is they're kept in shade too long. They don't produce flowers the next year. They just produce a lot of growth. Sarah, I'm not sure where you're from. Is there a solution? Oh, actually, I can work it out because you asked in the question. Is there a solution for woolly aphids on pink lady apple trees in Tassie? Well, woolly aphids is an interesting pest because really the ideal scenario is to have birds come in and clean them up for you. But if you don't have them around, and wattle birds and those carnivorous birds are the best. But if you don't have them around, you can treat your tree using something like eco oil or one of those horticultural oils. You need to just drench it. Now's a great time to do it because you basically where they breed and where they get to is in the cracks and the forks of those branches. So giving it a good soak and covering them all up is a good way to go. Hi, Jan. Jan's in Ipswich in Queensland, and thank you very much. I am glad to be back. When you buy a punnet of advanced seedlings that all look the same, why do some of them survive and others don't? Now, they're the same size, treated the same way, and planted in the same position. It's a really good question, Jan. So once upon a time in another life almost, I spent a period of time building and stocking Bunnings garden centres. So a little period of time where I worked with Bunnings and helped build those centres and develop their offer. And there was a strict rule we had with seedlings for all of the stores, and that was the seedlings could never be taller than the label in the punnet. And if they were too big. So the bigger the seedling, and particularly with advanced ones, the more risk there is of root damage when you're taking them out of the punnet. So it's a really, really good idea. And this is the way you'll get a consistent result. It's a really good idea to get a bucket of water, put a bit of sea salt solution in there and sit them in the solution. So just let them sit in the bucket for about 2 minutes before you go and plant them out. It's a really good way to go. So it's this thing with plants when you're transplanting them, they can go into shock, and the more mature they are in a pot, the more risk there is when you're taking them out of a punnet that they could be damaged. Scott's in Ipswich as well in Queensland. It's great to have you join us, Scott. When's the best time to prune Euphorbia zigzag plants? Well, the zigzag plant is an interesting plant. And it's one of those things that, of course, the cuttings will grow really, really well from it. So pruning it sort of now, or pruning it when you're sort of sitting in, what's the temperature there, 28 degrees today, pruning it now is not a good idea in the middle of the day. But at the end of the day, prune it and then leave the cuttings on the ground around the base of where the plant is, or in a spot that's dry. And then tomorrow, take those cuttings and then pop them into some potting mix. That's all you have to do. You don't need special, propagation mix or anything like that. The zigzag will grow like crazy, and it's a really cool little plant. So now it's not a bad time in Ipswich. But if you're in Melbourne or if you're in Tassie, don't go pruning them now. They don't like the cold, and opening up wounds can leave them open to fungal infections. Kim's in Melbourne. Speaking of Melbourne, hi Kim. Can I replace a citrus tree now? And when is the time to prune it? Right, so citrus you prune after they finish fruiting. So a lot of the citrus varieties have actually have done their thing now, and they are pretty much almost gone into sort of like a level of dormancy because they put so much energy into producing the fruit. What you need to do is you need to give them a good feed, and pruning them and shaping them is a good idea. I'm taking it when you say you want to replant, I'm assuming you're talking about transplanting it. So if it's a plant in a pot, really easy. Definitely now is a great time to do it. If you're transplanting, I would suggest that you leave it for another 4 weeks in Melbourne, all right? You just want it a little bit warmer. And again, that same thing, it's a good idea to soak the soil with sea salt. Really does a really good job in reducing transplant shock. Deanne is on the Gold Coast. Hi, Deanne. I've got some disease on my elkhorn. The tips are brown. There's some little black bugs like ants, and there are a few cobwebs. What can I do? Well, In actual fact, I suspect that you've probably got something that's going on completely natural. You don't have to worry about it, Deanne. You don't need to spray. This is when the tips go brown, the elkhorns have produced spore. And there are some animals that, some little insects that come in, and there's one in particular that loves eating it. Now, pretty much that's just how the plant rolls. It's just how it works. And it's not a bad thing sometimes to have some of these pests coming through and cleaning up any excess. But you should start to see, if you're in a really moist position, if they're in a moist position, some little elkhorns actually start to germinate it around the base if it's moist all the time. It is a fern, so there's a couple of little weevils that love eating the spore. I wouldn't spray it. You can do if you want. If they're damaging the leaves, then definitely give them a treatment. Ants, generally, when you're seeing them around, they're moving insects like scale around the plant, so that's something to keep in mind. Margaret is in the Upper York Peninsula, South Australia. Hi, Margaret. Thanks for joining us. It's lovely to have you with us this morning. We've had a lot of rain lately. My Washington navel orange has developed a sooty coating on its leaves. What is this and how should I treat it? Margaret, this is a classic problem. Now, it's not the rain that's causing that sooty mould on the actual foliage. It's actually ants being active, and they're probably farming something like scale or mealybug. Now, with a scale, it emits this little sucrosy thing called honeydew, and that's covered over the ants. And as they walk over the leaves of the plant, sooty mould, which is a fungus, but not one that's actually going to damage the plant, starts growing over the leaves. Now, if it's really bad and it covers the leaves black, then the plant can't reproduce or can't produce energy from sunlight because it's literally being shaded out. So you do have to wash it away. But the real issue is probably more likely the ants, and highly likely that you've got scale. So I would take a bit of a look. And the scale will be obvious because under the leaves and possibly on some of the new growth stems, you'll see little brown little dots, and they should be like little raised bumps. And that's what does that. So it's nice having you join us, Margaret. Thank you very much. It's nice to have people from South Australia tuning in this morning. It's one of our favourite states on the Garden Gurus. I'm hoping we're going to get across this series and do some filming in SA as well. So fingers crossed, we'll see how we go. Now, the spring series of the Garden Gurus is just around the corner, and we're about to tell you the dates pretty soon. And we've all started doing a bit of preparation work. In fact, I'm filming this week, but my mate Nigel Ruck, he was actually filming last week, and I think again on the weekend. Nigel, how you going, mate?
I'm very well, thanks, Trev. You?
Yeah, you're looking good, my friend. How's lockdown treating you over there in New South Wales at the moment?
Well, it's pretty bad this time around. I mean, for me personally, with the landscaping business and the garden maintenance, we were caught up. We've just come out of the 2-week construction lockdown. That was the first time they've done that. So we didn't do anything for 2 weeks at people's houses. I mean, it was an opportunity for me, to work on a couple of designs and do admin type work. So but it hasn't been, there's been assistance from the government for my employees. So really, it's not been too bad for my business. It's just been 2 weeks, but for other people, it's been devastating.
Yeah.
Really
look, for so many.
It's much worse.
And this is a pretty scary, form too of this disease, isn't it? It seems to be just moving through the community pretty rapidly.
It's pretty bad. I mean, it just feels a lot worse than last year. More contagious. Numbers are still. I think there were 208 or something like that in Sydney today. We get the daily update at 11. So, I mean. For some people, it's just devastated their business completely, which is terrible. For us, for me personally, it's not too bad. I mean, but we're being very cautious. I get tested every week. I just got tested again yesterday, and I'm getting my first shot of the vaccine on Wednesday.
Well done. That's great.
Yeah,
is that
I'm
the
looking forward to
AstraZeneca?
it. Just get on the. I mean, there's a massive push now for people to get vaccinated.
Yeah, I'm 2 weeks away from getting my second shot. I had the
Right.
AstraZeneca, and it was
Okay.
a good thing to get done.
Absolutely. I mean, so it's just it's just another step towards moving on from all this nonsense.
Well, it's nice to be back filming the Garden Gurus, mate. Now, tell me what you first up stories. You had a couple that you did the other day.
Yes, done 2 days. I was shooting on Friday, just gone
Hmm.
at Eden Gardens. We had a good day there. I haven't been there for a while, but it was obviously extremely quiet in the nursery. The cafe's all closed. I mean, I think I saw about 8 people all day, but uh,
Gee,
we've got so I mean, from our point of view, that was a good thing, So
yeah.
we had the place to ourselves pretty much. So we did nice story on indoor plants, and you got a mention in that one, Trev. I've got you in 2 or 3 of the stories already. I've come out firing.
Oh no, it
I've
started
come out with
straight
both
away.
barrels. You'll have to see. But all I'll
I
say
don't
is
know.
I'll put you up there with the likes of Sir Richard Branson. We'll just
Oh dear.
So we did one on indoor plants, another one on some nice pruning tools from
Yeah.
Darlac that you get through Mr. Fothergill's. That was good,
Okay.
and then a couple on fertilizers. So and some lawns. It's been good. It's been
Great.
good. The days have been great. I think hopefully they'll come up well.
Mate, the rainfall in Sydney year to date is above average. How gardens going at the moment over there?
Oh, pretty good. I mean, it feels to me that it's been quite dry just the
Right.
last sort of a couple of weeks,
Yep.
right? I've noticed it a bit. It's been a bit windy. We've had
Hmm.
some strong winds. It's been warm, like sort of it's hit 24 at times, so
Yep.
it's
Yep.
almost like spring's come a month early. And quite
Really?
frankly,
Yeah.
I hope it has. I mean, because but we've had, yeah, it does feel like this year we've had pretty good rain, pretty
Mm.
good rain overall, which is great.
Now, Nigel, we've got a question. Christy from Sydney Hills has come in. Most of her lily pilly species have black sooty mould over their foliage. What should I
Yep.
do?
Okay. Well, as you were touching on before, the sooty mold comes from the honeydew, which is, excreted by the likes of scale and
Mm.
aphids. So really, it's dealing with the pest that's causing the problem.
Yep.
And the oils are great. There's the Seasol have got their new Enviro Pest Oil from their
Right.
Earth Care range. So
Okay.
really, it's dealing with the scale.
Yep.
It's really with the lily pillies. I see more scale than aphid.
Yeah.
Pink scale, the pinks. I forget all the there's so many scales. I think it's the Californian. It's like a pinky color that's on the top of the leaves. You see
Yes.
that a lot. And then you've got the little the white louse scale that you see more in the shade
Yep.
on the actual branches.
Yeah.
Um, and
We're getting
that's
this Chinese white waxy scale.
is that what it is?
Quite a large one though, very big and very you squish them and they're really juicy and gross.
Yeah.
But they
Beautiful wash down with a glass of Chardonnay or something.
it's a little too early in the morning, Nigel. But anyway,
Maybe over there. Look, they're I think with scales, it's it's if you let them get out of control, it's a big problem. And really, the
yeah,
only way is to cut them off, prune the bad bits off,
yeah,
follow up with a good spray, because often you don't see the juveniles. The juveniles, you go, oh, you think you've got rid of them all, and then all of a sudden, a week or two later, they're back.
yeah,
So I think it's a combination of pruning and throwing out, spraying,
yep,
and as you touched on, ants obviously
yeah.
farm the scale. So if you've got ants around, they're probably also part of the package, and that's
And
what
that's
we do. And I'm obviously keeping the plant really healthy. Is
yeah,
a big feed. A big
yep.
feed is important.
Consistently feeding. I think
Yeah.
particularly when if you're using them in hedges and stuff like that, that's a really important tip as well. Tell her who is from the Central Coast in New South Wales, said it's always fun to see you two together because we always have a lot of fun, don't we, Nige?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's been a little while since. Well, we've certainly on the travel, on the explore trips.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of laughs over the years. Not recently, of course.
No.
But
No.
from my point of view, I always like to just throw a little bit in, and as you do, I've got you in. I think I've mentioned you in 3 stories already out of 6.
3 out of 4.
Out of 6.
Out of 6.
Yeah, just a little,
50%. Your
not
first
bad.
6 stories, and I'm in 3 of them. I can't
I've got
believe
the
it.
usual, Trev's the James Bond of pruning. That type of stuff. I've got that type of stuff. So yeah, it's fun to have a bit of banter,
It is.
amongst ourselves.
It is, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so much fun is that we are. And for those people who follow the show, on a regular basis, Nigel and I, we've been doing this for a long period of time. So it's nice to have a little bit of fun along the way, and it keeps us both on our toes. It's not unusual for me to get a text at about 4 o'clock or 4:30 on a Saturday afternoon from Nigel going, "Oh, you got me this week."
That's right. Yeah, you got me a couple in the last series. It was fun, a lot of fun.
Yes, Well, mate, look, thanks so much for joining us. It's good to catch up, and it's a great series that's coming up. We kick off on the 21st of August. Check your local TV guides because there are a few different time zones or a few different times around the country due to sporting events. So thought we might just suggest everybody keeps their eye out for that. And of course, Nige, you will be in top form. I know. I haven't seen these stories yet, but I think after this session today, I might be going to the edit suite just to have a look and see what's been sent over.
Try not to cut anything out, At least not the good bits, anyway.
Hey, mate, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it, buddy.
My pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day. See ya. Bye.
See ya. What a great character this bloke is, and a fountain of knowledge. He really is a very, very clever man. Comments are coming through, and we are getting obviously a lot of feedback. There's quite a few questions, and please remember, tell me where you are from. It does make a big difference. Sarah from Tasmania said that currently Tassie is waterlogged because WA has been sending all the water over. Well, I don't know. There's a lot that's been staying here. Thanks, Sarah. It's been very, very wet in Western Australia, one of the wettest years. And the upside to that, for those people who know WA, the southwest corner is a biodiversity hotspot. We've got about 12,000 unique plant species to this region. So the speciation in the area is massive, and the wildflowers are just absolutely sensational this year. So right now we've got a huge number of orchids that are coming out, but in the next or probably 4 weeks you'll see all the pinks, all the beautiful little everlastings and so on start to come on these huge shows. So I'm hoping we'll be able to show you a little bit of that through the Garden Guru series. But if you're not in lockdown and you're able to get over to this part of the world, then that's certainly something to look out for. It's going to be a long flowering season this year because of all the rainfall. We'll just keep rolling. And Kate, I'm not sure where you're from. What's the best natural solution to get rid of soursop? Now, soursop is a weed that produces this yellow flower that you'll see. It's very common right across the country, and gets its name because you can actually chew on it. It's actually used in some, or a lot of those grazing restaurants that do the foraging. They have been actually collecting this, and they'll use it in various dishes. So eating it's one way to go. That's certainly going to reduce them. The big problem with them is that they do spread all the way through garden beds if you're not careful. And the best way to control them naturally, and they are a very hard thing to spray with chemicals anyway, so don't worry about it, is to mulch over the top. So layers of newspaper, thick layer of mulch over the top of them, and it'll smother all the weeds out. I hope that helps, Kate. Erin is in Brisbane. Hello, Erin. You've got a blueberry in a pot. The leaves have gone spotty yellow and red, and that's usually an indication of quite cool conditions, Erin. feeding them does help an awful lot. It's quite warm in Brisbane at the moment, so I'm a bit surprised that you've got that problem. It sort of is fairly typical of when they're dormant and in colder conditions. It's 28 degrees in Brisbane today, so it probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Definitely feeding them is a really good idea. There is a bit of a blueberry rust around, and when you say spotty yellow and red, that could possibly be it. Might be worthwhile taking a photograph, Erin, and sending it through to us, or pop some leaves in a plastic bag and pop down to your local garden centre, just in case it is, because then if it is a rust disease, you will have to treat it. Anya is in Parramatta in New South Wales. I've got a gorgeous big Thai basil. It's gone into flower, and I was thinking of cutting it back. Should I prune it in winter, and if yes, when in the day, and how do I care for it? Well, I'm pretty amazed actually that you've got Thai basil doing really well. It's 21 degrees in Sydney today, and the nights get pretty cool, and Thai basil tends to struggle during colder conditions. What I would suggest you do is you let it go into flower, only cut the seeds off if you're going to collect them and use them, but I wouldn't cut it back, and certainly wouldn't cut it back hard. I'd wait until you're in proper summer conditions, and there are no cold nights, and then I would cut it back and I would feed it, and that should do the job. I hope that helps, Anya. Let's have a look. We'll go to Brisbane from our YouTube channel. I should mention that you can also catch us on YouTube. The question here has come from Karen. She's in Brisbane. She's got a passion fruit. It's got lots of large fruit, but they don't seem to be ripening. They're still green. Now, this is a pretty common problem. And there's a couple of reasons why this happens. Generally, it's because it is still too cool at night. So if it's a little warmer, you will see them start to get dark. But look, don't worry. Passion fruit have this wonderful way of dropping the fruit when it's ripe. And basically, once the vine starts dropping fruit, you can go through and start picking them, and you will find that they're a lot sweeter. So let it go through its natural course. In my garden, I've got bananas, and I've got huge big bunches at the moment. And they're all green, but I've got some that are starting to split, which means that the fruit's actually ripe. It's just there hasn't been enough sunlight, and Perth had, something like I think 19 days in a row with rainfall. So when you've got this lack of sunlight coming through, sometimes you won't get the blush coming through on the fruit, and that's what you need to watch out for. Now, I'm just looking, Lockie, who is producing today, is sharing me some notes. We've got some prizes to give away. Let's not forget that. And all you have to do to win the prizes is answer this question. What Australian natives have you got growing in your backyard at the moment? It's a really good one. And, of course, folks, remember, post your answer in the comments section, and don't forget to like this video as well. Plant of the week. I'm going to get Jimmy, who is running the show, to put up some photos that I took this morning. I went out for a walk in my local area. It was a bit cold, but it's a fantastic time of the year. And of course, it's Olympics time. This is when we're all going for gold. So why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you grow wattles? And I've got there was 3 of my favourite wattles that were in flower now. One of them is actually a pest in the area that I live in. It's called Acacia idiophylla, and it's the Flinders Range wattle, and it reseeds and it spreads quite rapidly. But it is beautiful this time of the year, just smothered in a weeping golden racemes of flowers or bunches of flowers. Absolutely beautiful. There's a couple of different ones. Baeliana and Potterifolia are the 2 other types that are there, both with beautiful bluish foliage. So the blue and the gold is a standout. Now, the thing with wattles is that they come in every different size. The 3 I've mentioned actually get quite large. One's a large shrub. The other 2 are actually quite reasonable, small to medium-sized trees. What I would recommend is, if you don't have room for a wattle as far as a tree goes, why not have a look at some of the wattles that are out there that are ground covers. Now, your local specialist native plant nursery is sure to have them in their native plant range. There's a whole bunch of different ones out that are now available, and they're effectively ground covers. There's also some quite dwarf shrubs out there too. So have a look for them. My plant of the week is the good old wattle, the acacias, which are just gorgeous this time of the year. Now, we've got our Garden Express offer. I forgot all about it. time to get into that. And it's great to see my mate David Van Berkel joining us. Hey, David, how are you?
Good, Trevor. How are you going?
Yeah, I'm pretty good too, mate. You guys freshly out of lockdown, thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness, because I don't think we could cope if we were staying in lockdown. There's heaps of people placing their online orders, and we're inundated, Trevor. It's just gone mad.
Well, look, this was a pretty tough one for you guys. I noticed that for a period of time you were held up, unable to get deliveries out, but they're starting to flow, which is great. And I'm hearing about people. In fact, I saw some Baronias arrive actually the other day here in the office, and so I know you guys are working flat out to get stuff out and moving around. How's it going in that area?
Yeah, look, I suppose it's still recovering a little bit from the storms. The orders were already flowing in, and with the storms, it just did hold us up a little bit. But for every day that we pack a heap of orders out, there's more orders that come in. Of course, the weekends are a lovely time for people to get online and place their orders. We've put on an extra 6 staff just to try and keep pace with things. Yeah, it's gone pretty crazy. So
that's great.
Look, I'm going to say we're having a lot of fun, but it's pretty tiring, and my girls are struggling a little bit to cope. And, so this week's offer, Trev, is a little bit secretive. We're not releasing it to everybody. We've just got it for the viewers of the Garden Gurus today. So we've tucked it in there in the rose section for them to find, and we're not going to release this maybe for another week or maybe Friday.
Wow. So what when we're talking about roses, are these the premium varieties, some of these, PBRs and things like that?
Lots of PBRs this year, Trevor. So we've got 2 collections. One's 5 of the best roses, the most new release roses. So we'll call that the premium collection. And then we've got a bigger collection of 10 roses. Probably a little bit more value in the 10 roses, but of course a few less premiums. The regular ones are Iceberg, Bonica, a couple of the Hybrid and Floribunda types. Okay.
Now, look, for those people who don't realise, you might be looking at your rose bushes or your neighbour's rose bushes and going, well, look, they're all dormant and you've been cut back and so on. That is actually the perfect time to be getting your roses and planting them. It's the best time of the year to be getting roses into the ground now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we dig our roses at the start of May, trim the excess foliage off, maybe send the sheep through to eat a little bit of that off. And then, of course, August, once the buds start to swell and you start getting fresh leaf growth, that's also a good time to plant. So for us, this is the end of our dormant season, and hence the clearance to push the last of the roses out off the floor, make sure they get some good homes.
We're currently playing some vision of roses, and some of the roses were actually filmed up in and around the outside of where you guys are up in Monbulk, and they are just spectacular. They grow so well up there, and over here in the west with hot, dry conditions, they grow really well as well. It's one of the most rewarding plants anybody can have. So if you've got room, and somebody the other day was pointing something out, they've got a fence and it's got a pathway alongside it, and they don't want somebody jumping over the fence at night or anything. So along the edge of the fence, which is only a small, like a low fence, they planted rose bushes, and they said they were thinking of them as a security plant, but of course the actual benefit was not so much the security plant side of it, but was just a spectacular flower. So they said they ended up with all their neighbours coming and then sort of bending over the fence and sniffing the roses as they walk past. So such a great plant with so many different versatile uses, right?
I think a rose like Mr. Lincoln or Papa Milan's, plenty of thorns on those. That might keep a few of the nasty ones away. So rose, terrific.
So, mate, I'm going to go back through this offer because it's pretty incredible. 5 premium roses for $75. Now, normally they'd be $140. It's a saving of 45%. Or this is the lucky dip rose offer. This is 10 roses. $136. That's amazing value. Normally $248. It's a saving of 45% again. They're really, really good. They're good deals. Now, one of the big issues that we've all had, and I know you guys have struggled with it, is that when we put these offers out there, they tend to be sold pretty quickly. You've got quite reasonable stocks, mate, still left?
I'm a bit nervous about this one. I fear a crash of the computer system happening. We have a few, Trevor, but I'm not going to say it's a lot, and hence we'll put it out to just the viewers today, and leave it through till the weekend or probably even next Monday, because they're just going to be snapped up so quick at that value, which is what we want also, Trev. We need to make some space on the floor. We've got new season product coming in. The rest of the hippeastrums have been harvested. We've got dahlias coming on board. The warehouses.
I've got to order some hippeastrums, David. Don't forget me.
I've got a dozen new varieties for you this year, Trevor. So perfect.
Fantastic. Well, look, it's a great deal. What have people got to do? They've just got to jump online, gardenexpress.com.au.
Exactly, but then go to the rose section. So at the top of the screen, you've got the different plant varieties. So go into the rose selection. It's not in the normal specials area, just so that we can hide it from a bit more from the general public.
Okay. That's an exclusive deal for everybody following the Garden Gurus Live. Mate, thanks so much for joining us today, David.
My pleasure as always.
Great to see you. All right. Well, that's a great deal, folks. I hope you can take advantage of that and really get some roses in. There's basically, for just over $200, you could have 15 roses. It's a whole rose garden, including some of the latest varieties and releases. Just talking about roses, if you're wondering about the things that you should be doing, right at the moment, and I mentioned this about planting, but Scots have got this. So we all know about Evergreen. Evergreen are a big sponsor of this show and supporter. They've got a lot of brands, really good brands within them, Scots being one of them, Osmocote being another one that everybody seems to know and love. But they've got some specialised potting mixes and also fertilisers that are designed specifically for plants to produce large amounts of flower. So roses are a classic example. And here you can see Nigel in form. He's got his iceberg out. He's got the Osmocote rose garden and azalea, and he's giving it a good handful. Now, roses do love to be fed. That's a really important thing. And if you're going to grow them, you've got to grow them in good soil. It's the key to great success. And you can see with this particular one, he's using the Osmocote rose gardenia and azalea premium potting mix. The potting mix itself has wetting agents in it. It's got, composted organics. It's got this water smart technology to make sure water's getting evenly through it. And this encourages stronger, healthier root growth. So the results are really, really good. So when you get your roses, it's worthwhile popping into your local Bunnings. I think you can do click and collect if you are unable to actually go and visit it, but you can order these things online at your local Bunnings store, and it's such a great combination. So fertilizer, roses, if they're in the ground, if they're in pots, give them the Osmocote. It's a really good thing to do right now as growth starts to come out in the warmer weather. And then the second thing is, if you're going to grow them, in fact, if you're going to grow anything, it's not just roses, it's camellias and azaleas and gardenias, all those beautiful flowering plants. Get the specialised potting mix. It just delivers such incredible results. I hope that helps, because if you follow our advice, I promise you, after you've planted your roses from Garden Express, you will be absolutely thrilled with the result, and that's what it's all about. There's so much to do with roses, but you get it right in the beginning, and you just do not have any problems at all, and you just enjoy those flowers. And the one tip I would say is, once they've come into flower, let them flower, harvest as many as you can, put them in a vase, bring them inside, and then when they finish flowering, go through and get the hedge shears out. You can get the still hedge trimmer, the battery-powered one, and go through and just literally hedge over the top, and all they'll do is flush new growth back out again. It's incredible how good they do that. So there you go, a bit of rose advice. It's a strange thing, because you might be thinking they've been cut back and they're a little bit in the dormant stage, but now's the time to be getting it right for what will be an amazing rose season coming up. Now, it's back to questions and answers. Make sure you hit the like button, folks. It shares it with your friends. And remember, whether you're in Victoria or whether you're in Melbourne, wherever you are in the country, let us know where you are, what suburb you're in, ideally. And don't be scared to send us a picture as well. We've got about 10, 15 minutes left to go. So I'm going to try and get through as many questions as I can. And we'll start off in Melbourne. Let's go. Lisa joined us via YouTube. That's great. Thanks, Lisa. I've got a fully grown orange on my tree. How long will it take to ripen? Well, it depends. If it's still green and it's full-sized, it's going to change colour pretty soon. Most oranges, the crops will be you're going to find, if you've got a full-size fruit now, you're probably going to find no later than the end of September and fruit will fall off the tree. So you can wait for it to do that, and that's always going to be the sweetest. I've got some blood oranges at home, and what I find with blood oranges is if you don't leave them on the tree to the point where you start to see them falling off and picking them up off the ground, they tend to be a bit sour. The longer they're on the tree, the more sunlight they're exposed to, the sweeter the juice is on the inside. Keith, let's go to you. You're in Moorebank. On my lawn, there are weeds that shoot out seeds as soon as you brush against them. Do I know what it is? I think I do. It's what we call flickweed, and tends to be one that tends to grow more in a shady sort of spot, or where the soil of the lawn is quite compacted and very, very wet and moist. Now, interesting thing about flickweed is one little tiny seed pod. So they have these pods packed full of about 250 seeds per pod. One little pod can throw out 250 seeds, and those 250 seeds in 14 days can be producing more seed. So they really do spread very, very quickly. Flickweed is a bit of a problem, and it is something that's quite well controlled by using the standard weed and feed. So those weed and feeds, if your lawn's a buffalo, then you're going to need to use a buffalo weed and feed. But if it's just a standard lawn, then standard weed and feed, and that should take out the majority of them. It's not going to stop them growing, and they'll continue to grow because there'll be seed now that's in the soil. But if you treat them now and then probably again in 2 months' time and probably again in 2 months' time, you'll knock out about 90% of it. And then, it's just a case of living with it. The real solution, in preference to constantly spraying, is to get your lawn growing strong and healthy. There's not a lot you can do at the moment, which is why I'm suggesting you treat it, because most lawns are actually dormant at the moment. But once we get into some warmer weather, feed the lawn. Give it a good feed, and then feed it again 4 weeks later. So get it growing fast and strong as the weather gets warmer, and it'll smother over those weed seeds and they won't be able to take off through it. So the key is a strong, lush, healthy lawn. Keith, I hope that helps. Linda and Scott are in Adelaide. Hello, Linda and Scott. We've got a Granny Smith apple tree that used to grow under shade. Now, our apple tree appears stunted. It's bearing a couple of dozen apples a year, but it doesn't appear to flourish. Are there any tips on bulking it up? It's interesting. It really, apple trees are best to be in full sun. Grannies, I've got a granny at home myself, and it will grow away from any competing tree. So any tree that's throwing shade over it, it'll grow towards the direct sunlight. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they do love being fed. So once they're growing, feeding them continuously, and I mean probably every 6 weeks during the growing season, is going to get the tree to really bulk out. So a combination of water and fertilizer, that'll get the tree growing strongly. Long term, do you want to keep doing that? Probably not. But once you've got it to the size that you want it, then back off the fertilizer, back off the water. The tree should be well and truly established. And what you'll find is by backing off the water and the fertilizer, your crops will be better. So it's a strange old thing. Now, Margaret's in Belgrave, and elm beetles are invading your house and all over your white carpet. What can I do? It's a bit of a there's a barrier treatment, and it's called Coupex. I was trying to think of the name of it, Margaret. Coupex. And what you do is you just spray it. It's a powder that you can buy in your local Bunnings store or your local garden centre, and you mix it up in a watering can and water it around the outside edge. So don't spray it as such. Water it around the outside edges of all the doors, wherever they can get into the place. Even sometimes if you've got the old wooden window sills, they can often find a way through there to get inside. So just literally water it over that, and they will not cross over that line, and you'll get control of it. It's an easy solution. Denise is in Hunter Valley, in the Hunter Valley in New South Wales, one of the most beautiful places. I've got 3 different types of corn I want to plant. glass gems, sweet, and some maize. Can I stagger planting times to hopefully avoid cross-pollination? Absolutely. It's the best thing to do. So, Denise, that's a fairly common problem, and the best solution is exactly what you're proposing. So, I would be looking at probably every 3 weeks, plant some more seed and just keep going that way. But yeah, if you plant them all at the same time, they're going to flower at the same time, you're going to get some cross-pollination. And the downside to that is that when you're collecting seed next time, you're going to get quite dramatic variation in the quality of the corn that you get. So yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit. Gail is in the Central Coast in New South Wales. Hi, Gail. I've moved our fiddly fig from inside to outside, covered the veranda, and it appears to be dying. What can I do? Look, at the moment it's pretty warm there. What I would suggest you do is, so it's been inside, you've gone outside, I would suggest you give it a feed straight away. More than likely, it shouldn't be dying. More than likely, what you're seeing is the foliage that's grown is grown specifically to go into a dark location. When you've moved into a brighter location, you'll start to see some burning around the edges. I don't know whether you potted it up, but certainly potting fiddle-leaf figs this time of the year is a good idea. And as I said, feeding, absolutely critical. Maybe a little bit of liquid fertiliser over the foliage might be the way to go. If you use the pour and feed, the one from Scott's, that the Osmocote one, and you literally feed it a little cupful a week, you will see a dramatic recovery of that plant. It will push out new growth and should recover quite quickly. Brad's in Cloncurry in Queensland. Hello, Brad. Are there any roses that will tolerate hot temperatures 40 plus in the summer? In actual fact, the best roses in the country are grown in South Australia. And the reason they grow so well is the areas where they grow them, the soil's quite heavy and it gets so hot there during summer, like 45 degrees, that you'll see the ground will crack. So it'll actually crack open. It's so tight. Now, they love hot, dry conditions. They don't like hot, humid conditions. And if you do have that sort of environment, the trick is to space them, double spacing, so a metre and a half apart, because you need to get air movement through, otherwise you're going to suffer with diseases and they won't be as rewarding as they should be. Tanya is in Perth. Hi, Tanya. My neighbour has sprayed Roundup on my property. How long will it take for the ground to be healthy enough again to plant it? Well, look, theoretically, as long as you've got microbes in the soil, they'll break that Roundup down pretty much once it comes in contact with the soil. It's really only if it sprays onto the foliage of your plants that you've got a significant problem. It will break down. It will take a little bit of time, but you're just going to have to let Mother Nature do her thing, I'm afraid. Sorry to hear that, Tanya. Now, Tennille is, and she's actually contacted us via YouTube. In Victoria, I've got dark golden mushrooms growing in pots and garden beds. Should I pull them out? Well, look, honestly, I'd enjoy them. Unless there's a risk of somebody eating them, they could be toxic. It's highly likely that they are. Most mushrooms tend to be. But these toadstools or mushrooms or fungi, whatever you want to call them, are only breaking down organic matter. So they're converting that and they'll break it down and turn it into soluble fertilizer for the plants around the outside. So they're not doing any harm. I'd leave them if you don't mind. If you do mind, if you don't like the look of them or you feel that it's a bad, there's something bad could happen with them, then pull them out, get them out of the ground. Shirley, we're not sure where you're from, Shirley. And it does make a difference in this particular question. You've lost some plants, gardenias and Japanese box, from curl grub. Now, curl grub is a little white grub that you'll often see when you're digging the soil over. And if it gets in large quantities, it can actually eat the root system. There are some treatments for it. What you want is one of the drenchers to drench the ground. And that's what I would be recommending you do. Probably the one that I would suggest that you think about just at the moment is, well, look, you know what I would suggest you do? I'd suggest you actually get into your local garden centre first. I think that's the thing I'd say. The treatments, there are varying treatments. Some of them are safer than others, and I just don't want to recommend something that in your area, where I don't know where you are from, could be toxic going into groundwater, or if it washes away, if it comes in contact with other areas, or if you've got a big bee population, there are certain things that are not good for insects and potentially for groundwater. So can I suggest that you just get that checked at your local garden centre. Cherie is in Bunyip in Victoria. Hi, Cherie. My neighbour and I are having a competition. Who can grow the best Daphne plant in a pot? Any tips to help you win would be fantastic. I'm not sure whether I'm cheating here or whether I should be putting my money on you at the moment, Cherie. Daphne at the moment, it should be coming into flower, so you should be getting some pretty good results. It does flush growth right through pretty much until Christmas time in Victoria. And that's time to be feeding it. But the trick is you don't want to be feeding them anything that is too intense, too fast release. So you want a controlled release fertilizer, something like Osmocote. And the trick is not to go for the Osmocote flower, but to go for the Osmocote general. Now, the reason I'm suggesting this is the general will encourage more growth, whereas the flower is going to encourage more flower. What you want to do is get as much growth, because the bigger the plant, the more impressive it'll be when it comes into flower this time next year. My mum's got the best Daphne, I reckon. Her variety is Heaven Sent, and it's an absolute ripper, and she's growing it in a pot, and it's just coming to flower now. It's hard to beat the perfume of the beautiful Daphne. Can't believe it. We've run out of time. What a session. We've gone through so many questions. We've had Nigel Ruck. We've had a great offer from David Van Berkel. Don't forget, if you want to get your hands on roses, now is the time to start a rose garden, and that is as good as it gets. Now, if you're wondering whether you're a winner of our question, I'm just looking, the question was, what Australian native plants are you growing? Well, here's our winners. Tennille, who came into us on YouTube, she's growing a lot of Australian natives, including black wattles. Rick had the red bottle brush. Margaret had snow gum. Marina had kangaroo paws, and Kate had thryptomine pink lace. So you guys are all winners, and Lockie will be organising for those packet seeds to be coming your way. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. I'm looking forward to joining you again next week for the Garden Gurus Live. As I said, we're not far away from the Garden Gurus TV series coming up. It's not too far away. We'll tell you a little bit more about it. You can always catch this feed. So if you've only come in halfway through, or you had to take off and you want to watch it again, simply go to our Facebook page. You can do that. You can also catch the podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Audible. Our YouTube channel is another way that you can catch stories from the Garden Gurus, as well as our web page, of course, which is thegardengurus.tv. A lot of people go .com. No, it's thegardengurus.tv. Keep that one in mind. And we'll be back next Monday. I can't wait to chat with you then. Get your questions in. Start sending them in early. It doesn't hurt. If you can, send me some photographs. It helps. And always remember, tell me what suburb you're from, or what town you're from, what state. We'll see you next Monday at 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. That's 10 a.m. Western Standard Time. There you go. Got myself completely tongue-tied on that one. Thanks very much, folks. And thanks very much to the team here. You might see me, but behind the scenes, there's a team here that's always pulling things together and doing some amazing work. And a big thanks to Robin, Lockie, and of course, Jimmy, who's done a great job. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Trevor Cochrane. See you then for the Garden Gurus Live.
This show is brought to you by the Garden Gurus and Evergreen Garden Care. Evergreen Garden Care and their market-leading brands are some of the most trusted consumer brands within the garden care market. They produce high-quality garden care products designed to help people create their own green oasis. Whether it's a garden, a balcony, or potted indoor plants, they want to inspire anyone, anywhere to be able to easily create and maintain their own garden. To find out more about Evergreen Garden Care, head to www.lovethegarden.com. Garden Express are Australia's leading mail-order gardening service, offering a wide range of quality garden products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show you jump online and visit their website. Visit the Garden Guru's online store and browse through a collection of high-quality, German-made Wolfgarten tools. You'll also find a range of books with information to help create and maintain a beautiful garden. You can also access the online store on the Garden Guru's Facebook page.